Hi, everybody. Barry McGuire here. It's the Monday main event, Monday, June the 28th, on a scorching hot day here in Edmonton, and I think across the whole of Western Canada. In the north, I was seeing that it's 20 plus up in as far as the map would go north in the Arctic, and all the way as far south as the map would go into Mexico. I'm a little worried about those folks in BC with plus 45 temperatures. That's tough. However, my garden's growing like heck. I water it every 2 days, and it's growing like crazy. So there'll be good jam for the next go round here. So what are we doing today? We're talking about creative strategies in today's real estate market. We're gonna talk about something that's been true forever. Since Don and I have been doing these courses 15 years or so, what we've always said to people is that if you understand the strategies, you will recognize the opportunities. And that is a whole bunch of what we teach is really understanding how the strategies work on their own, how they fit together with other strategies and combine. So we're going to talk about what we see in today's market and how we recognize those opportunities. And with that, we're going to do a lot of that on Saturday, July 17th. We're gonna go over those strategies, make sure you understand what the strategies are, how to recognize them. We can't go into all the details, of course, because that's what we teach in a full day course on any of the particular strategies. But we want on July 17th to just make sure people understand what the heck we're talking about here every Monday. Because if you understand it, then you may want to carry on and get a bit more education and set yourself up to take advantage of opportunities. So with that having been said, we're going to bring in Wayne Hillier, who runs this show in the background, and the divine Andrea Workington, who is now burning up the track in central Alberta as a registered licensed realtor and a property manager. Andrea started out not knowing a damn thing, just like the rest of us, as did Wayne. I mean, even for me, I knew the terms, like what a creative strategy was, but I didn't really know how it fit or why you would use it. And so we've all learned. We've all learned what these strategies are and how to recognize them. And then, of course, if you can see, hey, there's an RTO opportunity, then you can actually do something about it. So here we are. It's July 28th, 2021. We're coming out of the pandemic. We had, I think, Donna, you told me 36 or 39 cases in Alberta today. In all of Alberta, that's all we had, 31 cases. That is ultra amazing. And maybe our vaccination program is keeping those variants at bay. I sure hope so. But we're going to open up here, folks. And the economy and life is bursting at the seams. So I think a lot of stuff is going to start happening. So this is a good conversation for us to have. So Andrea, Donna tells me that you told her that in the last month or so, you've done for your own portfolio, 5 AFS deals and a couple of RTO deals, and also another 5 deals, I believe, in your role as a realtor, connecting, I guess, buyers and sellers together. So if the theme of today is what's going on in today's creative real estate market, that seems like an awful lot of deals to do in the last month. What are you seeing in your central Alberta area for creative real estate? Has it changed? What's going on? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so first on the realtor side of things, my focus really is to work with investors as much as possible. And so I have come across both buyers and sellers who are tired or for whatever reason need to get out, for example, divorce. And so they're willing to do an AFS. And there's one case, I won't give too many details because it's such a shockingly good deal. 4 fourplexes, and my client She bought them for the debt owed plus realtor fees, and she got the seller to pay $20,000 of those realtor fees.
Okay, everybody,
That's pretty
stop
fantastic.
that. 4 fourplexes. So now there's 16 doors.
For
16
the
doors
debt owed
for the debt owed. So
plus realtor fees. So at the
realtor
end
fees.
of the day, if you just take, let's just for easy math say the realtor fees, they weren't quite $15,000 each, but that's $60,000. Let's just say in rough math, and the seller paid $20,000 of that. So my buyer with $40,000 bought $1 million worth of real estate on an agreement for sale.
On an agreement for sale. Well, folks, I hope you listened to that. $1 million worth of real estate. Didn't have to go to the bank to get financing, and really put up $40,000, probably less than 50 by the time legals and other incidentals are into it. 50 on $1 million is a number everybody should be astounded at.
Yeah.
Astounded at.
2.5 years. We negotiated that they originally only had 1.5 years left on the mortgage, and we negotiated. We asked for 2 more, but we got 1 more.
One more.
So
Okay.
for 2.5 years, we have time to turn these buildings around. There was a lot of deferred maintenance.
Yeah.
And so definitely the buyer is going to have to put in some money. Let's not kid ourselves here.
Yeah.
But there's certainly room to improve the rent in many cases without doing any renovations because they're so far under market value.
Okay. So it's the classic owner who doesn't keep his rents up to the market, which happens a lot, doesn't it?
It does.
It's
it does.
surprising.
Yes. So
Wow.
my other scenario is I came across a gentleman who inherited some properties, and he does not live in the area. And so, it's a bit of a hassle to manage.
Yeah.
And so he was willing to sell those by agreement for sale as well. So we've got 1 closing next week, and he's still got another one available in case anyone's interested. But there are agreement for sales to be had.
So this is somebody who inherited. I have seen that actually quite a few times in my legal career. Not necessarily where the sellers are all wanting to sell creatively, but the beneficiaries of the estate, the inheritors of those properties, have no interest in keeping the properties. No interest at all, and they're quite. They can be quite amenable to listening to a proposal. And example is our student David Coughlin, who's been on this show talking about it. So this is not me talking about a client's private details. David found a 4-plex in my neighborhood of Old Strathcona here in Edmonton. That it was on MLS, and nobody was looking to buy it. There were 2 brothers who had inherited it from their dad, and in the end, they carried it by way of agreement for sale for a full year, gave him possession, let him do what he had to do, because it's a safe housing property, one of those grandfathered ones that you can have 3 rooming house type rooms in each of the basement suites. It was $3,000 positive cash flow per month without doing a tap of work to it, and he had to put up $20,000, $25,000, and then a year later he gets refinanced at a very nice rate from Service, your favorite lender, Andrea, and then he decides it's too much trouble having those separate rooms. He wants to reconvert the basements back into proper suites. And he goes back to the seller who lends him $100,000 at a favorable rate to do the renovations. Seller doesn't even own it anymore. So estate matters can be a great place to find properties. Can be a great place. Now, as we say this, I know we're here in Alberta and we're gagaing and Googling over AFS deals. And I know all you folks in in BC and Ontario and Nova Scotia, you're going, yeah, fine for you guys in Alberta. Nobody's doing that out here. But that doesn't mean other strategies don't work. There is always a strategy that works in your area, always. And so that's one of the reasons you'd show up on July 17th, is to understand a bit of, why this strategy works in this market and a different strategy works in a different market. So Andrew, I want to go back to your first example. So the properties are basically bought for debt, and we have to pay the legal fees. So were the owners tired of landlording? Were they just bad landlords? Give us some of the background and the motivation. Everybody's looking for motivation. I want to hear about that part.
Yeah, so the motivation happens to be that this particular seller is selling his entire portfolio across Alberta. And I believe it's due to divorce. So he doesn't really have a choice in the matter, I think, is kind of where it's at. So this was just one part of his portfolio. And, just looking at the work or the lack of work thereof, he was just somebody who was perhaps a little more thrifty and decided to lower the rent rather than put money into it to gain a higher rent, would be the way to say that.
Yeah, well, I guess that's a theory. I mean, if you never have to put a penny in and you charge lower rents to justify that, it's a trade-off. But never putting a penny in will catch up to you unless you can sell it and somebody else can do it. So how about the diligence side, satisfying your buyer?
And so this is, really key, because my buyer is actually out of province. And so they've never laid eyes on the property themselves. So really key for them was having those home inspections done. And we used that as a negotiating tool to have the seller pay for that $20,000 of realtor fees, because there was, active water leaks and safety issues not been taken care of. And so the buyer knew that right away they were going to have to put some money into it, because obviously they're a different kind of landlord and they're very concerned about the safety on behalf of their tenants. So, different type of owner, willing to spend a bit of money to make sure that people are safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, those are a couple of really good examples. Wayne, what are your people telling you? What are you seeing for discussion or come across your desk to look at? Anything on your end? I know you've been busy with some other things going on, but what are you seeing?
Obviously, agreement for sales for purchasing is not my primary focus right now, but I still do find a ridiculous amount of leads. And normally what I'm doing now is I'm just passing them off to other people who I know are actively doing it. And there's no shortage. There never is a shortage. I mean, if you know where to look and you kind of have to manifest it. You have to know, like you said, if you know the strategy, you kind of know where to look and you know where to, you can recognize them. But I have my regular spots that I'm always looking, and then I constantly am getting people calling me as well with opportunities, and I'm just passing them off. So there's no shortage. You know what I've noticed recently, though? It kind of caught me off guard over the last couple of weeks, but I've had a lot of old rent-to-own prospects, tenant buyer prospects from old campaigns years ago who are reaching out to me again. Five, which is actually a lot considering, why are they contacting me back? But I've noticed that there's a huge demand for rent-own, and I don't know what's causing this. Maybe it's coming out of this pandemic and people are feeling a little more optimistic. Jobs are starting to come back. People are feeling a little more comfortable about it. But I've seen a lot of tenant buyers coming back out and asking, do you still have this available? And I've had a few friends through investors who have sent me leads as well, saying that people are looking to get into a rent-own type program. So I see a lot of opportunities for that as well. Again, I have no idea why, other than perhaps just everyone's feeling optimistic and wanting to get into this hot market that we have. Yeah.
Okay, so I pluck a couple of things out of that, and I'm just trying to relate this, some of the things we're talking about today, to people who are listening, going, should I do this on July 17th? I know quite a bit about this, but should I actually do it? And maybe, after July 17th, take a course. So folks, from what Wayne said, number one, there are always opportunities. There are always opportunities. We're talking about what we see in today's market, but there are always opportunities. Number two, if you stay in this creative strategy venue, in this arena, and if you stay active, Wayne's hearing from people that he talked to years ago. Tenant buyers, for one reason or another, didn't do a deal, or maybe did do a deal and they want to do another one. But they're coming back, finding Wayne and saying, hey, I'm still interested in rent to own, which of course Wayne can do something with, or he can pass it off to somebody else because he's occupied doing other things at the moment. And the third thing that comes out of that is that Wayne said there are lots of opportunities if you know where to look. So that's one of the things that we talk about in our course. It's one of the 7 education steps that we talk about is marketing. You got to be able to find deals to do deals, and so that's a big part of what we teach. So that's really interesting, Wayne. So you're not even actively doing anything, and stuff's still floating across your desk. There's calls, and not just 1 or 2. There's quite a number. So that's quite interesting to hear. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Andrea, let's go back to you, and so I want to hear more examples. I mean, I think we can listen to examples for our whole event here. More examples. Let's hear them.
Yes. Okay. So I've got a few more deals cooking in the works here. They're all signed, sealed, and delivered. But I came across a family who was behind on their taxes. The husband had a workplace accident, and so he hadn't been working for the last year or so. So their mortgage was paid and up to date, but they hadn't been paying their property taxes last year nor this year's that's due. And they decided that they would actually like to leave Canada as well. So I'm basically buying this beautiful home. It's kind of at that mid 350 mark once we add the property taxes in. For the property taxes plus closing costs, it's essentially move-in ready. They've already done a bunch of renovations. They have 2.5 years left on their mortgage. So I'm going to begin marketing that as a rent-to-own possibility, because I think it's a big family home. It'd be attractive to people. It's in a fabulous neighborhood. And so I see lots of opportunity there. I'm buying another house that it's a half duplex from a tired landlord who has had the same tenant for 20 years. So he bought the house, one and done, 20 years, same tenant. But when the tenant moved out, it was just looking a little dreadful. So he actually started tearing out carpet and flooring himself. So when the first time I went there, I was like, oh, there's no flooring anywhere. But purple bathtub, hello. So anyhow, he doesn't have a huge amount of equity, but willing to do basically a 6-month agreement for sale, so we can put in $65,000 into the property. And there's not quite enough to flip it, but there's certainly perfect for the BRRRR strategy. So that's what we're going to focus on that. And it's in a great rental area. It'll cash flow fantastically. So once we finish the renovations, then we'll get our own financing on it, and it'll be plug and play with that. I have another person, another half duplex, just a tired landlord, already suited legally, but needs a bit of updating. $30,000 worth of work. So got that one on the go this week. They started renovations for that. Bought a house from somebody, all cash deal. It had been on the MLS for over 200 days. That's one of the best neighborhoods of Red Deer. And I'll do a shout out to Deb Kennedy, because I paid her for this deal. She told me what neighborhood it was in, and I said, I hadn't even seen it. And I'm like, I'll take it. She's like, really? I'm like, I'll take it. Because I know my neighborhood so well. I just said, that one's mine. I'm doing it. So that's an all cash deal. But
okay, hold on here. There's too many interesting things to talk about. I don't want to pass over some of these.
I got more.
I know you got, but wait, there's more.
Yes.
So for this last deal, so folks, you'll hear about it in our courses, how important it is to know your neighborhoods. If you know your neighborhood, as Andrea does and as Wayne does, they both understand the neighborhoods they want to operate in. And you hear about a house for sale and you hear a price, you just know that it's a total winner. So that's something that cuts down on, oh my God, should I go look at it? I wonder what it's like. Not that I mean, you just know these things. Mm-hmm. So, been on the market for 200 days. And so on the MLS for 200 days. Now, why wasn't it selling?
So what's I'll tell a little bit of Deb's story. Okay. So they reached out to her from her marketing. So she has a website and SEO and all that stuff. And she's in Calgary. Well, actually outside of Calgary. So she came and saw it. And I think she understood right away, just as I did when I walked in, because it's at that first time home buyer market in one of the best neighborhoods of Red Deer. Why has it not sold? Yeah. You look at pictures online, and then once you go to the property, you fully understand. So this gentleman very proudly, who'd lived in this house for 30 years. So people, you have to be careful how you approach these things. Okay. You do a lot of listening, because this is somebody's labor of love. So it's a bi-level house that they had a front attached garage, but it was underneath the bedrooms upstairs. So if it's not sticking out, you just drive in. So this is like a 1980s type house. So anyhow, he had converted this garage to a workshop, a woodworking shop. Most of the basement was a woodworking shop. He had taken out load-bearing walls and hadn't really done the proper structural thing. He'd done additions that were just ghastly. And I walked in, and I'm sure my eyes were like, what is going on here? Now, as soon as he proudly took me first into that garage, I understood right away why it hadn't sold. Scary. Like, how do people get away with this stuff? Anyhow, his deck was kind of at this tilt, and he was very proud of it. And he was like, well, it's sloping away from the house. And I was just like,
yes, it is.
Roll off the deck here. Like, it was just scary. So he'd done some really nice things upstairs. Still carpet in the ensuite bathroom. Looked like brand new. But now I understood. And, thankfully, the one thing that the realtor did, which really helped him, I think, is he had a home inspection done just a couple of weeks before we got there. And it pointed out all these scary things, which he diminished. In his mind, they weren't an issue because he'd been there for 30 years.
Yeah.
And in his mind, this was all wonderful. But their price, they started out way too high for what it was, because all people see is a nightmare when they walk in. Mm-hmm. And so Deb was smart enough to get this under contract. And I had seen, she had posted it in a group that I follow. And I'm like, phoned her right away, because I wanted something in that neighborhood. And so, there's certainly money to be made. And that's why one of the things that we talk about in the course, Barry, is if you can get yourself with a realtor who will put you on, the personal client system, where whatever you're looking at, a certain amount of days. Well, if you had looked at the average days on market in that neighborhood is probably 30 days, 45 max. The fact that this had been on the market for 200 days says there's an issue in people's mind. And as soon as you walk through, you know why. But it's all solvable, right?
Yes.
Most people, first-time home buyers, they're not going to take on something that needs so much work and is so scary looking in the basement. The main floor was fantastic, other than the carpet in the bathroom and the green countertops, but that's all easily solvable.
That's all solvable.
But what I see is money to be made, because once we fix all of this scariness and turn it back to what it should be, which is a garage and not a woodworking shop in the most of the basement, we'll turn it back into the family home that it was meant to be, and we're going to make money at it.
Yeah. Well, as I listen to that, Andrea, you're very good at, and you've always been very good at um, recognizing that people have pride of ownership, whether we think that's misplaced or not. People have pride of ownership. So for 30 years, he worked and did and was very happy there. And I'm sure he loved his house and he thought it was great. Even though he might have by that time had the bad news from the home inspector that there were issues, he's still proud of it. But,
exactly. It took us an hour to do the walkthrough. Usually I'm done in 10 minutes, but you have to be very patient, right? Because to him, it was very important to him to explain everything that he'd done and why he used this material there and why he did this and how to operate everything that he had done. You know, like he had manuals stacked up on all of his permits for whatever he had done, all there. Like it was the pride of ownership was you know, like astounding.
Yeah.
But you know, one of the points I want to make is one of the things that Deb said to me is, you know, I just threw out a number that I thought was crazy, and they said yes.
Wow.
They said yes. So, you know, the last listed price that they had on the market, before they took it off with the realtor, and they didn't have much nice things to say about a realtor, and I had to disclose I was a realtor, but buying it for myself. So that was okay. We overcame that hurdle. She got it $50,000 under the last listed price.
Wow.
And to her, she just thought it was a crazy price, but you never know.
Yes.
You never know. And so these people were so tired. I mean, it was vacant. They'd already moved into their next place, and they were just exhausted having to check on this place every couple of days and just frustrated. I'm sure that every time the house was shown, they got feedback, which probably wasn't very nice.
Yeah.
So, you know, I made sure to make some nice comments about, oh, isn't that beautiful workmanship on those kitchen cabinets?
Sure.
Powerful.
You know, like highlight the nice things. I'm not going to talk about, oh my God, that's scary. I'm going to say, wow, what an amazing yard you have. Well, that was really well thought out. Which
are things, I mean, you don't have to, I mean, we don't scam people and we don't have to pump their tires unnecessarily. But if it was a nice yard and well thought out, and if the kitchen cabinets look good, pick the things to be positive about.
Exactly.
You know, those are things you can say and mean it, and not not sort of hiding your disgust for it all. What about the the beams? You had the home inspector report. So did they get it and have it available for you to look at, so you knew what the inspector said?
Yes, absolutely. And he'd gone to the extent of highlighting all the deficiencies for me, so that I could see what was pointed out. So that was very kind of him.
And you've done enough of these to be able to look at that and assess it and go, okay, this is what the inspector says: fixable, 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 fixable. Nothing in there that's a deal breaker. So that gets you over that hump right away, doesn't it?
Well, it doesn't, because we still because there were so many oddball things done. Even though he had the inspection and gave us a copy, I still had my own electrician go in there, because there's some major work that needed to be done. Give us a quote. I had my contractor go in there. We're going to need to apply for a permit and make sure everything's brought back to code.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you to figure out those things so that you were ready to buy? Or were you ready right away?
Well, I was in my mind and heart, I was like, we're going to make a way. But, we still had condition removal period of, I think it was a week or 10 days. So we removed our conditions and we close on it July 8th. So we'll get going.
Okay. All right. So every one of these stories has little teaching moments. And so a couple of things that come out of that for me. Disclosure. So Andrea is now a realtor. She has to disclose that she's a realtor. Some people don't like realtors, but folks, there is a way to disclose everything, and we do role playing about that in our actual courses on how you talk to people, so that you can have conversations, tell them the truth, but move the process forward for you, because I mean, you are looking to buy if it works out, and so you need to learn how to talk to sellers in ways that don't offend them, that provides disclosure, that gives information, and that moves the process forward. So those are things you can learn how to do. The next thing is that this deal came across Andrea's desk because it first came across Deb Kennedy's desk. Deb being one of our focus team leaders who has her own marketing. She has her own marketing plan that gets her potential deals. So she came across it, got it under contract, but she didn't want to do it because she's in what community is she in? Is she in Cochrane? Near Calgary, anyway. In or near Calgary is where Deb lives. And of course, you're right there in Red Deer, in the neighborhood you want to buy in. So Deb didn't want to buy it. So she is passing it off to you, and you paid her some money for it, but that's fine. That's an assignment. She's assigning the deal to you. So folks, that's another strategy that you can learn about, wholesaling or assignments, where you find undervalued properties, you don't want to close on them, and you find ultimate third-party people to buy from you, and you make some money. You make some money in the process. So we share deals back and forth. And then the last thing, Andrea, is that was paying cash for this part of the. Was it part of the negotiating process that you went through? I mean, are you really going to pay cash for it, or are you getting a mortgage? How's that working?
Well, I'm definitely getting cash for it. I am not getting any traditional kind of mortgage.
Okay.
So I have a couple of different potential joint venture partners who have that kind of money, because I need cash to pay for it and cash to renovate.
Yes.
So with flipping, it's really easier if you're purchasing in cash. Could I get private money for it? Probably for 2 to 3 months or 4 months. Yes. But if I can find a joint venture partner, it just reduces our expenses and it increases our profit.
Yeah. So folks, again, once you've been at this for a while, you will find there are lots of people who are, if they believe you know what you're doing and believe you can make them money, and if you make them money once, they will continue to write checks. They stay in your database of investors, and when you find an opportunity, you put it out to them. And I'm telling you, it does not take any effort at all to share a solid opportunity with your networking database. People will write you checks all day long. And so that's when Andrea says she's paying cash, she's actually paying cash. So that's another thing you learn. Wayne.
Barry?
You're living in Leduc now, in your new house. How's your new house? Did you beat somebody up to get that? I mean, no, we don't beat people up. Sorry, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
but it's your private home.
What's that, sorry?
It's your private home. So maybe you did. I mean, maybe you were not being the nice guy you usually are, and you really took this seller to the cleaners. Yeah. Or maybe you were just your usual. So tell us about your new house in Leduc and why you're there.
Pretty boring story. Nothing related to creative strategies. This is actually a rental property that we bought years ago, and we decided to move back into it to get Everly closer to a better school. Our daughter. That was basically it. It's just that it's a 1 or 2 year thing. We have goals of moving to BC in the next couple of years. Actually, where I am right now, I'm in Nelson, BC. I took the week off. Okay. And we drove out over the weekend. So we're in Nelson, BC right now. I'm enjoying the mountains in front of me. That's why I'm outside. And so this is where we're actually planning on moving within the next couple of years. Okay. Once things normalize and our business is up and running, and I can operate it from here. But it's funny actually, since being here, it's us as investors, as entrepreneurs. We go to a place and we start asking questions. We talk to the locals. We try to figure out what's going on. We start looking at rental ads. We look at, for sale. We see a for sale by owner. You go drive up but even just, the last couple of days, we're kind of looking at rentals, looking at what's the market like. And I started talking to a few people, at the bar the other night when we were having a drink, and talked to the lady at the front desk of the hotel. And what we learned actually is there is literally no rentals here, like none.
Hey.
And there's a couple 1-bedroom apartments, and you can get it, or a bachelor for like $1,500-$1,600, but there's like 2 available.
Wow.
And everything is selling for over market value. And I was talking to a few people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I had a friend of mine. Their landlord sold the place and screwed them because now they have nowhere to live. They've literally been looking for rentals, and they have nothing. There's nothing available." And I was asking, like, because I was asking what it's like living here and what it's like trying to find a place to live. And he said, like, I'd love to do rent to own. So apparently rent to own is a pretty popular thing. I was talking about that earlier, and I've been thinking about that a lot with all of these different markets, with the exception of Edmonton, which is, normal, and Calgary's been good, but every other market in Canada right now is hot.
Yes.
And you know what they say about rent to own? They say it needs to be in an up market.
Yes.
So I'm surprised I haven't seen more people jumping on that, because, a situation like this, if you were to invest in a house here, there's lineups of people who are looking into getting into home ownership that maybe they don't have the full down payment available, or maybe they can't get the financing for it right now. That could totally, utilize that strategy. So anyways, that's one thing I noticed while I was here. And it's just something I've been thinking about a lot, just about Canada in general, that I haven't seen many, rent to own courses been popping up, because you would assume that, people be jumping on that with the state of the market.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. That's really interesting intel. So you're in Nelson doing this, like you say. We look, we talk, we ask, and if you understand the strategies, you will recognize the opportunities. Isn't that right?
That's exactly it. That's what I'm going to be doing all week. So I'm just going to be driving around looking at houses and looking for signs. And,
yeah. So folks, something else to consider is whether or not where you live has room for a strategy that would work really well in the market you're in. And rent to own does work very well in rising markets. It works well in rising markets. There's reasons for that. That's stuff we teach you in the course. But considering that there's a lot of rising markets across the country, that would be one really good reason to show up on July 17th and learn more about these strategies, so you can see if you can apply it where you live. And Wayne, the other thing that struck me from your conversation is that you've now moved into one of your rentals. So you bought this years ago, and it's been a rental, and because of Everly, your young daughter, and school, you moved back into it. And I'm just thinking about one of the things that we say, or I like to say anyway, when I'm talking to a seller and I'm thinking of just trying to get a property under contract and maybe wholesale it, is I say to them, interesting property here. I kind of like this property. It's a property I could move into myself, or I could add it to my portfolio, or I might sell it to somebody else and make some money. And I hope you're okay with all those things. Well, here it is. It's a property you could move into. That's how it is. We figure out how to say things to people that resonate with sellers, that are true, and that move the process forward. Mm-hmm. Andrea, coming back to you now, Andrea. You told us about the house in the neighborhood that you really were looking to get a house in, and we heard all about that one. What was the one before that? It's been too long since you told me about these examples for me to remember.
So, we have somebody who's leaving the country and behind on property taxes, basically move-in ready, a pretty house. It's going to cost us about $10,000 to $12,000, cash to mortgage, 2.5 years. Going to put a rent-to-own client in that one. We have a couple of half duplexes. We have some.
Hold on. So for these folks who are looking to leave the country, so I think I remember it was about a $350,000 price, which is for Alberta. It's kind of the sweet spot, isn't it? Sort of 325, 350, 375.
Yeah.
Other people are going, what? You can buy houses for that? That's crazy. That would cost us $800,000 or more. So that's the sweet spot where you live, and it's a bigger house, you said, in a nice area, and so for them, is that the market? I mean, is Tell us about the market and other motivation, and why aren't they hiring you as a realtor to sell it and get more money for it?
Because they basically owe what it's worth once you include the property taxes that they owe and realtor fees. They basically owe what it's worth, because it's not going to show as nice. They've done some renovations, but then they've not done others. And, but it's a big 4-level split. The 5th level is actually storage, but it's still 7 feet high.
Oh.
So, I mean, it's like a fantastically huge house located across the street within 2 blocks of one of the most popular schools in the city. So, I mean, it's got so much going for it. But when people are tired, they're tired. And, I wasn't the first person to go see them, by the way. So often when people are motivated, they call more than one We Buy Houses ad. And I called them. They happened to be able to meet me in 10 minutes. I just drove over there. And this is where rapport building comes in, because I never said the words agreement for sale. She said them. So that's how I know somebody else had been there.
Right.
So somebody else had made them an offer. But just sometimes cuando habla español, when you can speak people's native language and be very kind and just find out what they need. So I said, what do you need? What do you need out of this? Yes. Well, they didn't need any money from me. They just needed to be able to walk away. They needed these property taxes cleared up. And so when I talk about things like a power of attorney, when they're leaving the country, no problem, totally understand, you know. So totally willing to work. They'd already sold most of their furniture, super motivated, and, just be kind to people. I'm not there to be mean or be super direct in the way I deliver. I just said, what do you need? And so when you treat people with respect and you listen to their story, a lot of it is people just need to tell you the story. And then I went back a couple of days later with the contract, very patiently explained, when English is a second language, you've got to make sure that you're explaining the contract, explaining worst case scenario, explaining why we set up a joint bank account. You got to explain all of these things very patiently. Make sure people feel comfortable. Make sure they understand. So, when you take the time to be kind and to be courteous and not to be rude in how you approach this. Like I would never say to them, well, your house doesn't look nice.
No.
Right. Or I would just say, oh, wow, that's amazing what you did with those cabinets, because she told me her dad and her husband did it. Am I going to criticize what they did? No, of course not. Am I going to be kind? Yes, I'm going to be kind. Am I going to ask the children's names? Am I going to greet them in their native language because I can? Yes.
Yes. Yeah. No, and that a bit of speaking somebody's language goes a long way. And even if you can only say, hello, how are you? I know you're better than that. But if you can do, just say hello, that is another mark of respect for somebody. Another mark of respect.
And they had other offers on the table, but they chose mine. So
Wayne?
Well, I was just about to say, I've been talking with a few people recently, a few of my mentees, about just how to go about talking to, a seller in the initial conversations. Do you start talking about price? Do you start talking about, an agreement for sale or seller financing and stuff? And I tell them, when I walk in the house, first viewing or the first time I'm meeting them, all I'm really trying to do is trying to find something that I have in common. Because if I can find something that I have in common, or, hey, what's your husband do? Oh, I used to go work there, or I know someone in that field, or I know this person, this person. Try and find something that you have in common with them to kind of build up that relationship quickly so you can create that connection. And then, they might have a bunch of people who are, coming up to them and making them these different offers. But if you have a connection with them, if you build that relationship, they'll trust you. And that's what you're trying to do in the beginning stages, is trying to build that trust. So it's the exact same thing that I do.
So folks, it's I really want you to listen to what Andrea and Wayne said with their last comments, that you never insult people. You build rapport with them. You find something to talk about. You find some kind of a connection, because people want that. They want that as part of the sale and the relationship. It is not just about selling the house. And we've had, haven't we not, endless numbers of tales where other investors got to the place before you did and were mean. They were nasty. They're beating people up. They're rude. And, you know, sellers don't like that. Nobody likes that. Who likes that? Who likes that in any kind of relationship? And sellers, even desperate sellers, even tired sellers, sellers who want nothing more than to just get out of a property, they will resist selling to those kinds of people. And they might have had 5 of them show up. And you know what? You're the 6th person through the door, and they will sell to you because you have been kind, been gentle, been listened, tried to find out what they needed, and moved the process forward. And so we do a lot of work in teaching how to talk to sellers like that and why it's so important, how to actually do it. I mean, what words do you use? It's fine for me to say, be kind to them. And Andrea has given us some examples of what she does, but there's lots to be learned about how to talk to sellers. So that's really, really, really important. Now, Andrea,
Donna had a question, and I don't think you should ignore Donna.
Yeah, good point.
Although you did.
Oh,
That's not
what?
a long time ago.
How long ago? I was too busy watching my camera so that it doesn't look like I'm doing this all the time. You know,
Put shades on, Bear.
like, hey, good point.
I can answer Donna's question.
Okay, go ahead.
Donna says, can I expand on how the seller approached the concept of agreement for sale to me? So as I typically do, when I meet people at the door, I ask them to take me for a tour of the house and then do my kitchen table talk. And so go to the kitchen and just explain how we take over payments. And that's when she said, oh, you mean agreement for sale? And so I made sure, even though she used those words, I still fully explained it, because I don't want to trust what somebody else has said to her is what I'm actually doing.
Yeah.
So we went through all the details, how that works, how it's all set up to make sure that they
Andrea, that's always great.
Did I freeze for a second?
Frozen. Yeah.
Did you get my explanation or no? Do I need to redo it?
No, you were at the point where you're saying no. She said agreement for sale, and you said I made sure that I explained an agreement for sale to her because you didn't want to rely on what somebody else had told her.
That's it.
Okay. So folks, one of the things that you probably recognizing that we do and that we try and teach you how to do is we try and teach you how to say to a seller what the effect is of what you're telling them. Instead of saying, let me tell you about my agreement for sale strategy. It's a this and it's a that and blah, 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 blah. You don't say that. You tell them how the agreement for sale strategy will get them what they need. You know, you don't talk about it till you know what they need, and you say, okay, would it be of interest to you if we, and then you explain, you know, how the agreement for sale strategy actually works in practical terms, which is what people listen to, but not if you say, let's do this by way of agreement for sale. That never works. That never works. All right, more questions. Corey Vance. I have a lead on a 5-year-old condo in Cranston. Where is Cranston? The seller is in foreclosure and owes almost $240,000. It's worth $240 to $252. I'm thinking AFS for the seller is the best option to get out. What options might I be missing? Okay, Andrea.
I think one thing that's important, Corey, is to check and see what else they're behind on and what other foreclosure action has been started. Because, for example, if the condo association has also started foreclosure action, they probably owe a significant amount of condo fees. So I definitely want to check on the condo fees, the property taxes, and see what else is behind.
Yeah.
Just keeping in mind that they may owe more than what it's worth. So the only time that we'd want to buy something for more than the value is if they were going to give us like 7 or 10 years of an agreement for sale. We need time to pay that down.
And one big difficulty with foreclosures is you never can quite tell what the position of the lender is. So they might be in pre-foreclosure where they haven't been in pain, and the lender is threatening to start foreclosure. It might and so you can sometimes deal with that one reasonably well. But if it's actually gone to the lawyers and the foreclosure process has started, in an AFS, we want to have the seller be our lender. We want that to be seller financing. And so it's very, very difficult to get a good sense of whether or not, even if you paid up everything that's owing, whether or not, if there's, say, only 1 year left on their mortgage, what happens in a year when it comes up for renewal? Lender policies for areas of the country that aren't doing well, the lenders have special policies. You might find that for renewals in Alberta, they say, okay, if this was in Ontario or BC, we automatically renew. But in Alberta or Saskatchewan, any renewal we send to our underwriters. They're going to take a look at values. They're going to take a look at performance. We're trying to limit those cases where we have to foreclose sometime in the future. So got to be really careful with those, Corey. They're tough to get information on and tough to turn an already started foreclosure into an AFS deal. So, Wayne.
And it's fine if it's a shorter term, right? If you're going to stay within that mortgage term that they have, it's okay if you're doing a quick flip kind of situation. Mm-hmm. Like Barry said, Barry, I'm dealing with something very similar with an agreement for sale that I have, where it came up for renewal, and the offer was like 5-6% interest rate, and we're like, whoa, where did this come from? And we have no idea why, but something happened along the way with the seller, whether it was before or after. We believe it was probably a missed payment. Which, like you said, in Alberta, they send it to the underwriters, and that's what they offered them. They offered them 6 months at like 6%. And for us, we had it locked in already at 2 point whatever. We thought it was great. Things are awesome. But, now that it's jumped up to 6%, it doesn't leave. It's hard for us to renew that, because at that interest rate, it's going to increase the payments. It's not going to be as profitable. And it's not really the deal that we originally signed up for. So it makes things complicated. So, definitely look at the exit strategy and how long you're planning on having this, and make sure you consider that.
Yeah, which takes us back to Andrea's comment that the when you're negotiating an agreement for sale, and let's say it's not a foreclosure, you definitely want to get as much of a renewal possibility as you can. Let's say there's 3 years left on an agreement for sale. Sellers will often give you another 5-year term, which gives you 8 years. You don't have to keep it for the full 8 years, but time is leverage, and time is generally money. So we like to get nice long ones if we can. But as Wayne says, on the other hand, if you could pick this up, turn it around, and get rid of it quickly on a shorter term, in a shorter period of time within the existing mortgage term, that can sometimes work. But foreclosures are difficult, folks. You can put a lot of effort into foreclosures and not come up with any. I'm not saying ignore them, because there are occasionally good deals to be done. More questions. Rachel says, very true. Learned that with our conversations with our first potential JV partner. We plowed ahead with too much information too quickly. So Rachel, this might have been a comment from a while ago, so I'm missing the context of this. Wayne, do you know the context?
A confused mind says no.
A confused mind says no. All right.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I get it. Wayne, are there more questions for us to answer before we go off on another tangent here?
No, actually.
Really?
You answer everything.
Okay. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Well, I've really enjoyed this today. I've really enjoyed it. You know, talking to you two reinforces what I think I know, which is these are great strategies. The 5 creative strategies that we teach are great strategies, and I teach them, and I sit in my air-conditioned office on the 25th floor, and I work on these files, but I'm not in the trenches like you guys. I'm not there generally looking for deals. I believe in the strategies. I believe in what we teach, but for me as well, it's great having a session like this where I hear what you're doing, where I hear all the things we've talked to each other about still working, where there are still lots of opportunities. There's, as Wayne says, there's no lack of opportunities, and you will learn about how to get started, how to move along, how to find a first opportunity, how to close a first deal, how to improve your marketing to get lots of opportunities, because you do have to look at a lot of things often to find a deal that works for your strategy. So I've really enjoyed it. Emphasizes what we all believe is that these strategies work. And if you understand these darn strategies, you will recognize those golden opportunities is really what it comes down to. So any closing comments from Wayne? Let's start with you, Wayne.
No, I think you just summarized exactly what I wanted to say, is that there really is no shortage of them. And, Andrea mentioned earlier that a seller had already talked to someone else about agreement for sales. And I know there are a handful of people who are actively out there and they're putting in the work. And I know there are a lot of people who know the strategy but aren't actively out there looking. And it's always going to go to the first person who's willing to go out and ask, and to put in the work. So, if you're still on the fence about it, or maybe you gave it a shot and it didn't work because you only tried it for a weekend, get back out there, because there are opportunities. You really just got to know where to look. You got to put in the effort, and you will find those golden opportunities, I promise.
It's true. Andrea, what about a closing comment?
Yes, lots of deals to be had, whether you find them yourself or through an AFS-friendly realtor. And there are realtors like me out there, even in Ontario. Yes. So, it's just a matter of you taking action at the end of the day.
Yes, good point. We can flap our gums and talk and take all the courses we want, but you gotta take some action. So I'll just close by saying, you guys, remember, Andrea is now a realtor and she is doing deals. So if you're interested in doing stuff in Central Alberta,
and Wayne is a mentor.
And Wayne is a mentor. So we've got talent here. They do other things other than help us out as focus team leaders. So remember that. July 17th, an all-day event. Donna, anything else you want me to tell folks who are listening about that?
No, register.
Just well, Donna says, register.
What are the 5 strategies we're covering? We've talked about assignments, agreement for sales, rent to owns,
fix and flip, and then joint ventures as they apply to the other strategies and how you can piece them all together. Yeah, that would be enough strategies for anybody who's interested in creative to pop along and move. Well, thanks again, you guys. It was a ton of fun. Enjoying outside. If it's so nice, I may go outside, crack a beer, sit on my deck. Can we stream the Canadians game tonight, Donna? Okay, sorry. All right, everybody. Time to say goodnight. Thanks.
All right, you guys.
Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, everyone. Bye.